Okay, 5 o'clock. Call the meeting to order, please. Roll call, please, Cassandra.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislator Calamus,
Here.
Legislator Mosier,
Here.
Legislator Lindecker,
Here.
Legislator Nortz,
Here.
Legislator Moorhan,
Here.
Legislator Leviker,
Here.
Legislator Osborne,
Here.
Legislator Nellenbach,
Here.
and Legislator Dahlhoff.
Here. Everyone, please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. And Legislator Calamus, would you lead us in the invocation, please?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this past week when families and friends gathered on Easter to celebrate the birth and the resurrection of your son, Jesus. We ask for your guidance and your presence as we serve the people of Lewis County. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. The March 5th board meeting minutes have been distributed, and if there are no amendments, they stand approved. And we have a proclamation. Sandra, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proclamation is commemorating April as Fair Housing Month. Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11th, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housings based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, and familial status, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities. And whereas New York State additionally prohibits discrimination based on age, marital status, military status, sexual orientation, gender identity, and lawful source of income. And whereas Lewis County is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all. And whereas our social fabric, the economy, health, and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities. And whereas more than 50 years after the passage of the Fair Housing Act, discrimination persists and many communities remain segregated. And whereas fair housing is integral to the ethical commitment of members of the National Association of Realtors and the Jefferson Lewis Board of Realtors, and it is critical to the ability of all real estate professionals to serve their clients, customers, and communities. And whereas acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunity are repugnant to a common sense of decency and fairness. Now, therefore, I, Lawrence L. Dahlhoff, Chairman of the Lewis County Board of Legislators, do hereby proclaim April 2024 as Fair Housing Month in Lewis County, New York, as an inclusive community committed to fair housing and to promoting appropriate activities by private and public entities to provide and advocate for equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of Lewis County.
Next, we have some certificates of recognition. Legislator Moser, would you like to lead off with that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm excited tonight to introduce some Lewis County High School athletes. I would like to recognize Chase Nevels from Copenhagen Central School, who won his second New York State Wrestling Championship title at 124 pounds after winning last year at 118 pounds. I would also like to recognize Tavian Camper of of Copenhagen Central School, who won his first New York State Wrestling Championship at 152 pounds. Last but certainly not least, I would like to recognize their coach, Clay Russell, for his leadership, training, and support for the Copenhagen Central Schoolboys Wrestling Program, which brought back 2 New York State titles this year. If Chase, Tavian, Mr. Russell, Chairman Dolhoff, and County Manager Bichet would like to come forward for a quick picture, that would be appreciated. Any parents or school personnel are also welcome to step forward to take their own pictures.
Privilege of the floor. Is there anyone here that would like privilege of the floor to make any comments? Sheriff? Far as I know, SNRT went fine. Very little damage. No damage, actually. No littering. People were respectful. I know a few got tickets for being on Route 26. Apparently they can't read, but anyways, it went very well. Membership was down considerably from last year, Easter weekend. But it went very well, and
to maybe 4,000 people total show up on the hill. A very small number compared to the past, but that's okay. We'll take that once in a while. So weather was cooperating with everybody. There wasn't much dust as there usually is, so it went well. And pretty much we saw through it a lot of rider participation, enforcement on their own, telling their own to take it easy and slow down, and things like that. I would definitely say there was a little less of the alcohol involvement too as well. Sure there was drinking up there, but a lot less than this year. So for some unknown reason, which is good. So.
went well. Thank you for your participation and your help, and thank you.
His presence this weekend, so thank you very much for that. Yeah.
Anyone else like privilege of the floor? If not, we'll move on to report of the Finance and Rules Committee per Rule 6, please, Sandra.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee has met, and they recommend to waive rules to act upon late resolutions.
Need a motion? Vince? Do I have a second? Andrea, any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries. Clerk of the Board report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Board of Legislators received an adopted resolution from Cattaraugus County titled Supporting New York State Senate and Assembly for Proposed Increase to Local Transportation Funding Amounts to the State Budget. They also received a notice of condemnation on a property located at 1047 State Route 26, Village of West Leiden, from Code Enforcement Officer David Brown. There have been 2 RP 554 applications for corrected tax rolls submitted for tax map number 207.00-02-10.210 and 037.00-02-12.100 that have been approved by Real Property Director Candy Aiken and Treasurer Eric Verkler. The following departments have submitted their 2023 annual reports: Board of Elections, Community Services, Emergency Management, Highway, Planning and Community Development, Probation, Public Health, Purchasing, Real Property Tax Services, Recreation, Forestry and Parks, Social Services, Solid Waste, and Workers' Compensation. April is recognized as National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Each year, social services educates others and raises awareness about the impact child abuse has on children and society. They give parents the tools they need to parent effectively, even under stress. To make child abuse less likely to occur, as a county, we must invest in our community and our families. In 2023, Lewis County Child Protective Services responded to 434 reports. National Child Abuse Prevention Month is more than just raising awareness about the reality of child maltreatment. It's about taking action to reduce it. That concludes my report.
Thank you. And we'll move to standing committee reports. Legislator Osborne, would you start us off with finance and rules, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to report that Human Resources reported that they have started implementation of the new HRIS platform with NeoGov, focusing on customizing the system and uploading information. There are 6 segments of the system, with the first install taking up to 12 weeks. April will be a busy month for Human Resources as open enrollment for health insurance kicks off, with multiple presentations and one-on-one meetings with employees. Lastly, registration for the 6th annual Community Cup is now open on the county website. Community Cup will take place May 29th through June 1st this year. And I have a couple motions. I move to accept the NYMIR package Inland Marine Crime and Privacy and Security Cyber Liability Insurance renewals in the total amount of $269,630.12, effective April 5th, 2024 to April 5th, 2025. I make that as a motion.
Moved by Tom. Do I have a second? Jessica, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
And I move to authorize the Simmons Hanley Conroy firm to proceed with the next phase of the opioid litigation by adding and asserting claims against certain large pharmacy benefit managers to hold them accountable for their role in the creation and perpetuation of the opioid epidemic. I make that as a motion.
Moved by Tom, second by Tom K. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom. We'll move to General Services Committee with Legislator Moorhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Office of Building and Fire Codes reports that there have been 95 permits issued with project values totaling $4,082,855. The office has responded to 17 complaints, issued 84 certificate of occupancy, and researched 5 FOIL requests. They have also completed a combined total of 251 construction inspections. As the weather begins to turn nice, construction should pick up and their workload will increase. I have 3 motions also. I move to award bids for hot asphalt mix based on project location in accordance with a tabulation of all bids prepared by the highway superintendent and placed on file with the clerk of the board for the period of April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025.
By Andrea, second by Tom Osborne. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries.
I move to award bid for pavement markings to K&T Striping LLC in accordance with the tabulation of all bids prepared by the Highway Superintendent and placed on file with the Clerk of the Board for the period of April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025.
Moved by Andrea, second by Josh. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries.
I move to authorize an early dismissal for all non-essential personnel on Monday, April 8th at 2 p.m. due to the solar eclipse.
Moved by Andrea, second by Vincie. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Any questions for Andrea? If not, we'll move on to Health and Human Services with Legislator Moser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This week is National Public Health Week. This is a week to acknowledge and celebrate what public health is and does. It is celebrated the first week of April every year. This year's theme is protecting, connecting, and thriving. We are all public health. Public health is more than just public or healthcare. It is the steps we take to make sure our neighborhoods and environment are free from pollution. It's making sure our food and water are safe to eat and drink. It's making sure residents have access to healthy food and physical activity opportunities. It's also the relationships we foster in our communities. This year, to celebrate, our public health department is doing This is Public Health campaign. You will find various pictures on our public health social media pages displaying the many aspects of public health throughout our community. This campaign is to bring awareness to the things we may all take for granted that impact our health. We must recognize the healthier we are, the more our community will thrive. As the chair of the Human Services Committee, I would like to thank our public health staff and the many community partners they work with for their work in promoting and protecting the health of our residents. And I do not have any motions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Jess? Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
And we'll move to Legislator Nortz, who is our board's rep on the Hospital Board of Managers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just got to warn you, I got a wicked cold, so if something starts sounding funny, that's what's going on. First off, I want to start out by acknowledging some employees up there at the hospital. The February Employee of the Month was Madison Compton. She's a lab tech trainee. They also voted on Employee of the Year, Christina Boucher. I believe I said that right. She's a respiratory therapist. The HR committee gave a report that at this right now, they have a total staff of over 589 committed people working up there, full-time, part-time, and casual. The finance report was a gain of $2.3 million versus a loss of $362,000, excuse me. The year-to-date gain was 1.9 million versus a budgeted loss of 803. I know those numbers sound kind of weird, but that's because the IGT of $4.9 million was included in that transfer. And if you take that out, you had a loss of $508,000. Mr. Hellinger put $2 million in a side and reserve fund, anticipating a payback that was probably going to be an overpayment. At some point, the state would probably want it back. Other than that, it's been a real busy time up there, and with your permission, Mr. Kayer would like to add some comments about what's been going on.
Welcome, Jerry.
First, let me give an update on the capital project. We are this week expecting Phase 5 to be to have a code review and an occupancy review by the Department of Health, and that will bring us to a space where we only have one more phase to complete, Phase 6, which is the final piece of medical surgical. After that, we have punch list items for the outside and medical surgical in the surgical pavilion. So the end is in sight. So we're pretty excited about that. I know maternity has generated quite a bit of discussion over the last several months, but last week was a big week. We had our first delivery, and I'm pleased to say over the next 7 months, we right now today have 89 deliveries scheduled. And so you'll see that number increase as the months move on. So we're off to a good start, and we've received a lot of good feedback. And the Department of Health was very gracious when they did their site visit so we could reopen. And frankly, we're thrilled that we're back in business in that service line. On the grant front, we're getting near the end of our current capital project, but as you know, when you have large plants, you have to have a mindset of continual investment. So the nursing home, through the administrator, Ms. Deb Wertz, is applying for a $10 million grant for us to modernize the inside of the nursing home, which would include the bathrooms, creating more private spaces and additional communal spaces, and increasing access to the outdoors for the residents who live there. So that grant will be submitted in a couple of weeks. It'll take a few months, but I'm trying to get to a space where we always have a project ready to go when those grant resources are made available to us. And in February, the nursing home applied for a transportation grant, which would allow us to bring on a new wheelchair accessible bus and cover the costs of a full-time and part-time bus driver and transportation aid. Harrisville Health Center, it's a nice opportunity to share that with former legislator Hathaway's strong urging to reopen and see what we could do. And Legislator Frost, we have a lease with the town of Diana. It's a 10-year lease. We have a paint crew up there this week. The building appears to meet all the required codes. We have a physician that'll be staffing it for the next several months, and then we'll transition to an APP who is an experienced PA who will be ultimately supervised by this physician. So we are 2 schedules away from submitting the certificate of need, and the Department of Health is very pleased and have been very supportive. So I expect the CON will be expedited because the northern part of the county has had a difficult time accessing easy access to primary care. So it won't be long. And lastly, under the leadership of Megan Stockman and Dr. Sean Harney, we've put all of our practices under a recognition program called the Patient-Centered Medical Home. That includes the Beaver River Health Center, the South Lewis Health Center, the Lewis County Family Practice, which is here in Lowville, and the Lewis County Internal Medicine Practice, which is also here in Lowville. And all of our practices have received PCMH recognition or Patient-Centered Medical Home recognition through the National Committee for Quality Assurance. So in my world, that's a big deal specific to our employed practices. So a lot of good work happening there. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Great work on Harrisville. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to project manager's report with Nick and Jim Garrido.
Again, I'd like to thank Ryan and the board for the opportunity to report on the project. We are in our final stages. Nick will update you on the upcoming work. We're pushing hard for the contractors to complete the closeout. Contractors like to build. It's always a challenge to get the final paperwork from them, the consent of surety, releases of liens, documents where they're asking for the final equitable adjustment to the contract. But we're pushing forward on that as much as we can. and we look forward to wrapping this up. Nick will give you an update on the actual work.
Construction this month has been slower, but we just received our final punch list this week for the interior of the building. So that's going to be going on in the next what's going on right now. Move in, the county, I believe, is moving in Monday, or starting to move in Monday, the 8th. And then the majority of the work that's left at the outdoor services building is exterior, site work and paving, weather dependent, but hopefully end of April and then into middle of May, for paving. And then down at the DMV, there's still a few loose ends down at the DMV with the exterior site work. The fencing has to go up and a little bit of grading around the parking lots there. But that's the same site guy that's coming to the outdoor services. So that work will be going on the next few weeks, and that's pretty much it down there. Thank you.
Any questions? Or
Anyone have questions for Nick or Jim? Thank you. County manager report, Mr. Pache.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few announcements. First of all, as Nick and Jim just said, we will be moving into the outdoor services building, which means all of our new buildings will be occupied at that point. We are looking at a final ribbon cutting for June 4th. So that would include DMV, Board of Elections, who moved in over the winter and we didn't have a ribbon cutting. And then for the outdoor services with soil and water and recreation, forestry, and parks. So I'm thinking June 4th, if that's good with everybody, because it's a meeting day, so we can do something in the afternoon and people just stick around for the board meeting afterwards. Something that Tim and Caitlin have started that has really taken off is the annual safety day. It's something that we put on up at the fairgrounds, and the Lewis County towns, and actually some towns and county folks and some state DOT folks from surrounding counties and towns have joined us as well. That is going to be on May 7th this year. You guys are welcome to attend any portion of that you want. There should have been flyers put in your mailbox, but particularly we want to invite you to lunch, which is at 1:15 that day. You're more than welcome to join us, and our highway guys will be there along with a lot of the town guys as well. Community Cup, to reiterate what Tom said, May 29th through June 1st. We have had great legislative participation in the past. You guys are more than welcome to sign up for any events, bowling or golf or relay race, whatever is your pleasure. And then lastly, I will be in Washington, D.C., April 8th through the 10th with the Advocate Drum committee, which I am part of. It's the American Association of Defense Communities Conference. We went back in 2019 when Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence were awarded a Great American Defense Community distinction. We had that flag that hung up there for a few years. So it's a good opportunity. We'll have events lined up with our congressional representatives. We have events lined up at the Pentagon. There's events for military spouses, learning about their needs and their employment, how we can help with their employment. And it's an event, a convention where all of the communities across the United States who host military bases come together and share ideas and swap stories and learn about how we can better support the military community. So I will be gone from April 8th to the 10th, and I can give a nice report on that when we get back. So that's it for me, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. And we'll move to County Treasurer Report. Mr. Berkler, please.
Thank you. Just a couple of items I would think I would note or highlight in addition to the written report. Our health fund balance as of earlier today is just slightly in the black, which is not a great position for the beginning of the month. Our claims continue to be high on a weekly basis. So that, as I've said before, we'll continue to keep an eye on that. And the premium increase that you were looking at is just something that is, we need to do something to bring in the funds to cover our claims. And I think I noted in our report, it's audit time. You've been aware of our Office of the State Controller's audit. Now it's our external audit firm, the ones we pay to come and audit us, which is a great thing. They've been on site for a couple days and they've been working remotely for about a week or two before that. So about pretty much wrapped up with the majority of their work. They will be back to make a report to you probably in June or July, and that's gone relatively well so far. Any questions? I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Eric. And we will move to report of the Finance and Rules Committee per Rule 7, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee reports that they have examined the claims presented for payment in the total amount of $2,867,068.77 and recommend that they be audited and allowed for the amounts claimed.
Someone like to move that, please? Vincent? Do I have a second? Josh? Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries. Consent resolutions. Is there any resolution that legislators would like to vote on individually other than 64 and 83?
I'd like to pull 68.
Are there any others? If not, could I have a motion to move the consent resolutions? Jessica, I have a second. Andrea, any discussion? Let's see, 68, is that the one on health insurance? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the consent packet carries.
Resolution number 64 is auditing and allowing claims in the amount of $2,867,068.77.
Moved by Andrea, second by Tom K. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just have to recuse myself based on payments to myself as the assigned council administrator or based upon vouchers I've approved.
Please show legislator Moser recusing. And this is a roll call.
Legislator Osborne.
Yes.
Legislator Nortz.
Yes.
Legislator Nellenbach.
Yes.
Legislator Calamus.
Yes.
Legislator Leviker.
Yes.
Legislator Moser recused herself. Legislator Morahan.
Yes.
Legislator Leindecker.
Yes.
Legislator Frost is excused, and Legislator Dahlhoff.
Yes. 68.
Is resolution authorizing increases to health insurance premiums for the plan year commencing June 1st, 2024.
I'd like to move it. Should I say someone needs to move it? Tom Osborne, and a second by Jeff. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself from this vote as I'm a participant in the plan.
Okay. I'll lead it off with a few comments in that this is raising the premiums for the people that participate in our health insurance program. It is certainly not anything anyone here wishes to do. Our only role in this really is to ensure that the fund has enough money in it to pay the expenses. There's been high utilization, and consequently, we need to raise the premiums or the revenue to cover those expenses. We had a few ideas that we tossed around, essentially trying to either reduce or postpone the increase until maybe for 6 months. But upon review and past history where we've done that before, it causes further to be further in underwater. So we're at the point where we have really no alternative. Not anything we would like to do, but this is where we're at. Anyone have anything they'd like to add?
Yes, I do. I was wondering, do we have a plan to set up a committee for next year? We talked about that. I mean,
We can form an ad hoc committee and review.
and start earlier.
We can do that. The problem is, where the fund balance is, in relation to the 1st of January. So, but we can certainly set up a committee and look into it.
Mr. Chairman, as far as the figures go, I know we can start working on this earlier, but when do figures come in that we could actually start looking at numbers? Is that
Well,
more like January, or when's the actuary table for
Eric,
that?
would you like to take that one, please?
We get information every month from GKG, our consulting firm. And so, they're tracking claims paid, they're tracking premium equivalents, the revenue coming in, they're looking at our stop loss reimbursement. So we have all of that information on a monthly basis. Milliman, the actuary, we can request reports from them, but really it makes sense to do that later in the year as we approach the renewal. But I think given the information that we do get, we can certainly use that and look at other things that we can do with the plan. So there's definitely information available, but some of the things that we will really need to make a premium decision in the future would come later in the year typically.
When's a good, your suggestion on when a good time for an ad hoc committee to lead off?
Well, my thought, and maybe Ryan and Caitlin can chime in also. I mean, we have been meeting regularly with our internal management group and with CSEA representatives. We definitely intend to continue that. And maybe as you think about an ad hoc committee, possibly that just a thought that something legislators could participate in that group. It could be a separate group, but that's already a functioning activity. And I think as we've talked about before, really any changes to this plan need that discussion. They need the discussion between our internal management team and our consultant and the CSEA. So legislators want to be involved somehow to see how that, what can change with the plan or what the future is with the plan. That's one activity that's already going on.
So it would be acceptable for a few legislators to join that group.
Again, I think that's something you can think about,
Okay.
if Ryan's got some thoughts on that, but that's a possibility.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I would say last year we did start meeting. Our first meeting with the union was May 13th last year, and we did quite a bit of heavy lifting. Quite honestly, I mean, we did the whole Medicare Advantage transition, which was a big, one of the biggest, most significant changes we've made to the plan. But I think it would be good to have the legislators, however you want to structure it, at the table. We will also need, as Eric said, our CSEA and union leadership with us as well. But sure, I mean, let's roll up our sleeves and see if there's more savings or more structural changes that we can make.
Andrea?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the taxpayers contribute to this insurance as well.
Yes, the taxpayers are actually the ones that carry the heaviest load. The employees pay 25% of the premium, and the Lewis County taxpayers pay the majority, or 75%.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to add to that with Ryan, and I firmly agree. We did make some great heavy lifting with the Medicare Advantage plan in the summer into the fall with the retiree. And we'll see those benefits and those savings as the years to come. Going forward, as Eric mentioned, speaking with the unions, union negotiation, throw in a healthcare coach, yearly physicals. I think we put that into the plan as part of the negotiation so we can identify any potential health risks that may be problematic, identify them early, and it's looking for the best for our current and past employees. So I think it's good. We'll continue the negotiations, be more proactive, and I think which we have been rather than reactive, and continue from here.
Thank you. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Show Legislator Weindecker opposed and Legislator Nortz has recused,
I oppose as well.
and show Legislator Levicker opposed as well. And Frost is out, so we still have 6, and the motion carries. Very difficult issue.
Resolution 83 is a resolution to award bid to Tioga Construction Company for the replacement of County Route 29 West Road Bridge over Whetstone Creek in the town of Martinsburg.
Moved by Andrea Moorhan, second by Jeff. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that carries. I believe that's the end of the resolutions. Do we have any other business? Seeing no show of hands, motion to adjourn. Andrea, second by Jeff. Any discussion? All in favor? And we are adjourned.